Welcome back, everyone, to Red Spotlight Entertainment. I'm Alexis, joined by David Francisco here for the podcast that brings you everything coming out of the world of movies and more. And today we have something special in store for you guys. We're really kind of doing something we haven't done in quite some time, and that is we're going to begin a brand new recap series of a brand new individual that we have not previously gone into in previous years. And as a matter of fact, I was just thinking about this just a few minutes before we went on air here, about the last time that we did something like this, as far as like delving into a director's filmography. We've done that just a few times here on the show, and I think the last time was 2020. Yeah, I was thinking it was 2020, as a matter of fact, with Guillermo del Toro, and then it was 2019 with Martin Scorsese. So God, if that was 2020, it's been 5 years. This is January 27th, 2026. Now we're recording this, and it's been some time. 2020, I feel, was the year that we kind of did a whole bunch of specials after specials, and that was a fun year to do that. In the absence of new material, new stories, and news. And then after COVID ended, there was just like this onslaught of never-ending news as far as, you know, the change that's happening in the industry. So if we've already done Del Toro and we've already done Scorsese, I called it the Scorsese Files, the Del Toro Files. This is gonna be the Spielberg Files. Steven Spielberg, which is, far be it for us to really come up with anything original to say about that man and his legacy. I doubt that we will. We're just here to state the obvious, probably, and to really kind of like share our feelings and thoughts on what is really the most well-known American director, probably one of the most well-known directors ever. A vast filmography that started in the 70s and has continued strong to this very day in 2026. He is 79 years old. And he is about to release a brand new film that is really touching on so many things, but one that has already released a trailer and has caused such a stir. So I think we're going to set for ourselves that we're going to go ahead and recap the entirety of his filmography as best as we can, leading up to the release of Disclosure Day, coming out in June. Which features Emily Blunt, Josh O'Connor, Colin Firth, Coleman Domingo, and a whole bunch of other people, I'm sure. It is an interesting film in that it is based off of an original idea by Steven Spielberg, and that is rare for that to happen. He's usually kind of the guy that reads scripts and then just does that script. It's interesting. We're going to have a lot to say about Steven Spielberg, and he has worn different hats throughout the various different decades, and there's a lot to say. We're obviously leaning a lot on the HBO documentary from 2017 to kind of inform what was happening in his life, what was going on as the industry was responding to his career. So it is, in a sense, going to be us talking about a certain group of films at a time, and then giving some commentary on what was going on in the world and how the industry was responding to his rise. For today's episode, we will be discussing the first 4 films. 3 of them were theatrical releases. One eventually did get a theatrical release, but it was a TV film because he was doing TV movies as his beginning. But this one was got such a notoriety right off the bat that it, for a lot of us Spielberg people, we kind of consider it the honorary first movie. First, I guess you could say, like, 'cause it is the one that kind of like, oh, okay, something's going on here. And it's much more, I think, of a splash as far as a debut, if you want to look at it as a debut, than Sugarland Express, which in and of itself we will also be discussing. So Duel, Sugarland Express, Jaws, and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Those are the films that we will be talking about today on our very first Scorsese Spielberg Files. This is going to be Red Spotlight number 527. A lot to be said here. I do want to, full disclosure,
Mm.
No pun intended, obviously. At the top, this is my guy. This is the guy that I feel like constantly makes movies just for me, even though a lot of his films are very much for everyone. But lately, these last couple of decades, I feel like I feel seen by him. And if you recall our conversations in past podcasts, especially with Fablemans, which that movie might come up a lot throughout the various different recordings because if the way that this is meant to be viewed is okay, watch Fablemans after you've already seen the filmography, and then watch it all over again to see what you can catch from there. Um, no other director I think better captures um how I think I view films, the style of films, how we view the world. Like I genuinely, this is to me the single most exciting voice in film. And as he has, risen in power throughout all the various decades, he's obviously, created an empire of films. Spielberg's face and name is synonymous with Hollywood and the Hollywood movie business. And even to this day, it's really hard to escape that. Um, so yeah, that's kind of like the opening salvo for this. David is someone who I feel like for a while has been wanting to get into all of his movies, and I think this kind of gave us the perfect excuse to go ahead and go into that. David, your thoughts on all of this that we're doing today?
No, yeah, I've been wanting to, trying to rush this as much as I could, but I had to move. Had to focus on my bills and everything, so it was it was a little bit tough to even get started on this. And I also just wanted to like use a proper TV to watch these movies.
Yes.
um, and so Duel, I had to watch it like on a pretty small screen, but the rest of them though I managed to watch on my TV, which you've seen it before. So uh,
It still has the audience. Go and look at our Avatar reaction
mm-hmm.
or our Avatar podcast, and they'll see the TV there.
Yeah, for sure. But finally got the time for it, and then so I managed to get these out at least. And I mean, I've seen other Spielberg movies that we talked about before, Indiana Jones, E.T. There was a couple that I was surprised, like, what the heck, he directed this? Saving Fire Ryan, Amistad, Schindler's List. So I've seen the others.
Yeah.
I've seen his other movies before, but to actually like sit down, actually try to see in order, see how much different he was from his first movie to now and everything. Like it's pretty cool to watch, and we'll be talking about it. But I saw Jaws for the first time,
Well, to
so
be fair, all four of these movies you watch for the first time.
yeah, true. But I was getting some
That
crap.
Jaws is the one that's like, yeah, uh, you finally watched it. Yeah, I
Mhm.
understand. I think that was the point. Um, so yeah, for those of you who haven't already caught on, this episode will be getting into the 70s of it all. The first four pictures, the ones that got Spielberg. And one of those movies, Jaws, I mean, that one is a very special film for a lot of reasons
Mhm.
that just supersede just Spielberg's own filmography. Like Jaws is a movie that changed the game forever. And people still time, and that won't be the last one of his movies that changed the game forever, as we find out, um, as we will come to find out. But yeah, that's where we're gonna go ahead and begin. Um, these four films, Jaws, obviously everybody knows. As do they know Close Encounters? Although I think today, I feel like Close Encounters still has its fans. I
Mhm.
don't hear people talk about it as much as they talk about Jaws. People always talk about Jaws, and that is like the film to go to.
Yeah.
And then, unless you know your Spielberg, the other two films, which are the first that we'll be going over today, you may not even know them at all. What's interesting about Spielberg's entire filmography is that there are some of the best known movies ever made that most people have seen, and then there are some that you probably have heard of didn't know he directed, like you were saying before. And then there are a few that where you were like, I had no idea this even existed.
Mm.
Because no one talks about it. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of films that people talk about to this very day from those years of Spielberg's past, and then there are some that others do not, uh, for various different reasons. Um, I don't think Steven is a perfect filmmaker. I do think he's very fallible. I think he uh, makes some mistakes, and I think you see him. Mm, I think it might be unfair to call some of them duds, but I do feel that more or less every decade, like the overall totality of his filmography, the highs outweigh the lows, that the lows people just kind of forget about. But I do feel like from the very beginning, Steven is consistent most of the time. And every now and then, I think he drops the ball
Mhm.
on some things where it didn't quite work out despite his best efforts. I think of, to an extent, Sugarland Express, although I quite enjoyed that movie, but sure, that one was his first movie out of the gate, and it kind of got like a so-so reaction out of it. You know,
Mhm.
I think of 1941, the comedy that I've never seen. I may in the next episode watch highlights on YouTube, but that one is like reviled as one of the worst films, maybe the single worst movie he's ever made. It was such a big bomb. People were thinking, "Oh no, is his career over?" Then he bounces back with Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's like I guess that didn't go anywhere. In the 80s, people had really interesting reactions to uh, Color Purple and Empire of the Sun, although I would not consider those movies to be duds, but I do feel like people consider it kind of a weird ordeal. People still feel weird about the fact that Steven Spielberg, a white filmmaker, directed The Color Purple, even though it was at the behest of Quincy Jones himself. Like
Hmm.
Quincy Jones owned the property, had the film rights, and it was like begged Steven to do it despite Steven's reservations. And I still think it's a great movie, but people obviously have their issues about that. In the 90s, there was a real big dub with the Lost World Jurassic Park. I
Mm.
think it was in the late 90s. In the 2000s, I think you have Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. In the 2010s, you have Ready Player One. So I feel like every decade there's going to be one that's just like, we didn't need to go here.
Yeah.
We didn't need this. You know what? I forgot there was one in the 80s that it was so forgettable. I forgot it existed. I was in my mind library looking for the movie that I was thinking of. It was a movie called Always with Richard Dreyfuss. Um, no one has heard of it, and
Mm.
if you've seen it, if it's just such it's the definition of a lifetime original movie. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's but it's not very memorable, obviously. Even I
Yeah.
forgot that it existed. So it's like every decade there are a few films that you're like, well, anyway, let's move on to the next one. And I think with Stevens always kind of like helped himself in that department because he's always been working. I mean, what are we at? 30 movies or close to 30 movies, like overall, as far as like from, I mean, clearly over that, if we're going to include the TV movies that he made,
Mhm.
uh, the television specials, or even, his own personal, movies that he made as a teenager, a young adult. Um, always making movies. Um, and it's rare to see him not know what he's going to do next. What makes this interesting or what makes this period, I should say, so interesting is that um we're now coming up on 4 years since The Fablemans, which is crazy to think about, but like that is a long gap
Mhm.
for Spielberg projects. Um I'm trying to think like, he's had some years where it's like two films have come out in the span of a year. Now I know West Side Story and Fablemans did not come out the same calendar year, but
They're pretty close.
okay, I mean, West Side Story came out December 2021 and Fablemans November 2022.
Hmm.
That's
Almost a year.
Basically, right, the inside of a year for the most part. 2011 there was War Horse and the Adventures of Tintin. In 2017 and 18 again. So December 2017 was The Post, and then in May 2018, a few months later, Ready Player One.
Mhm.
2005 was War of the Worlds and Munich. I think also I want to say 2002 with Catch Me If You Can and Minority Report. I want to say 1998 had The Lost World and Amistad. 1993, perhaps the most infamous, Jurassic Park and Schindler's List. So it's like he's a workaholic. He loves his job. He loves his movies, and um, rarely is he not working. And what we're building up to with Disclosure Day is going to be quite interesting because he didn't know what he was going to make next. He had to wait to kind of be inspired, and the idea of it kind of like going all the way back to the beginning, which is what we're going to be talking about today. So then, we'll begin here with the first film in this bunch, which is going to be Duel. Now, this is a film that, for the most part, I don't know. This is not a very well-known movie, unless you watch a lot of movies, and unless also you um know Spielberg and you kind of wanted to delve into, his filmography. But here we are. This is Duel from the year 1971. Here's a letterbox description. The most bizarre murder weapon ever used. Traveling businessman David Mann angers the driver of a rusty tanker while crossing the California desert. A simple trip turns deadly as Mann struggles to stay on the road, while the tanker plays cat and mouse with his life. I do also want to note that we are to review as much as possible. We're also watching the HBO documentary that corresponds with what we're doing. So there's a lot of places to start, David. I know we can use this as a spot to talk about this first movie. But before we even get into any of that, just what, if anything, have been your expectations specifically for this era of Spielberg? Because obviously with filmmakers, they have a long arc and an evolution of sorts. And
Yeah.
I feel like for most of them, you're not expecting a lot of their greatest hits to come at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Sometimes they can stumble out of the gate. Sometimes they can be quite slow. And I feel like, um, no pun intended to the fact that this is a car movie, but your mileage may vary on, the feel of some of these early films. Um, Overall, if we're going to start somewhere, before we tackle the individual pieces, if we look at these group of 4 movies together, what were your expectations? And overall, how have uh how have they run up against what you actually feel about these movies?
Mhm. Well, Jaws and Close Encounters, I had pretty high expectations. Those were, the ones for Spielberg. I'm sure a lot of people do think Jaws was like his very first movie or something, but that's not the case. And then, but when it comes to Duel and Sugarland, uh, those ones, I really did have pretty low expectations. Every director has said, like, hey, your first movie is gonna suck. Like, it, though, don't expect some masterpiece right off the gate. And I mean, not a masterpiece, obviously, for these two, but I was pretty blown away, mostly with Sugarland. Duel is, I very much enjoyed it and was better than what I expected, but at the end of the day, it was just an okay movie. At the very
TV
least,
movie.
yeah, TV movie. Yeah.
Yeah. You can tell it kind of is that way.
Hmm.
It after a while, it kind of was like, okay, we can kind of wrap it up a little bit here.
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember it feeling too long, but I was definitely going like, oh, okay, yeah. And he was definitely like experimenting. He wanted to, have some fun with this concept. He was definitely playing around with, how to build up the intensity when they're on the road. Um, you know, or yeah, basically in the beginning, like how to build up intensity. He was always moving the camera a lot and all that, and I found those parts kind of interesting. Um, and then when it came to
Sugarland.
Sugarland, yeah, that one for sure blew me away because I thought it
Yeah.
was just gonna be kind of corny, I guess, in a sense. Because I mean, I didn't know much about it. I just knew the concept of the once we got to the beginning of it, I knew what the plot was gonna be. I thought, okay, this might be slow. I don't know, could get corny with like weird jokes or something. But no, I was fully on board from the beginning. I actually genuinely liked these characters, and
Yeah.
the more and more they were hanging out, the more I was really liking them. And yeah, I was very much surprised how it went by, and
Hmm.
I wasn't really bored once, especially not just with the main characters, but like the whole cop situation, how that whole thing was building up. I was like, dang, how the heck were you even able to do all this? Um, like, and just, I don't know, like it was very much surprising.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, Jaws and Close Encounters, it was pretty much what I expected. Well, I shouldn't say that actually. Jaws,
Well, I mean, to be fair, you had high
yeah,
expectations and you expected they
hmm,
kind of were met to an extent.
yeah, yeah.
So that's good. That's good.
I mean, I said many times, like movies, from that time, it's gonna be like a 50-50 shot whether I'm gonna like it or not. I'm either gonna be like, this is the most boring thing ever. I don't understand why
I
people liked
mean,
it,
this
or
audience will find out when we get to Indiana Jones how you feel about certain kinds of movies from that
yeah.
era.
So, but I was a little bit surprised that I enjoyed Jaws more than I thought I would, and the thing that stood out the most was I kept telling myself, I definitely understand why people were afraid of this movie when it came out. I wasn't scared myself, but I'm like, if I had seen this the first time in theaters, I probably would have been a bit freaked out, especially if I saw it as a kid too. Oof.
Mhm.
Um, and then Close Encounters, I think that was the one that like very much met my expectations. Where I was like, I know we're just kind of have like a bit of a mystery going on, but it's gonna be that Spielberg thing. I think that movie is like the one that really shows off who he is as a director, or like how he is as a storyteller, where he just wants that sort of mystery and grandeur of storytelling or fantasy, I guess you can say that, like he really knows how to nail it. And
Yeah.
so
We're gonna have to keep that one in mind a lot
mhm,
for this new movie we're gonna get.
yeah,
Close Encounters, especially. I assume there's gonna be a lot of ideas from that film carried over all the way because what Close Encounters and this new movie Disclosure Day have in common is now I don't think Steven co-wrote the script for this new one, but the idea is based off of his.
mhm.
But with Close Encounters, that's like one of the very few movies he personally wrote himself. So there's something definitely in him that continually keeps him going back to this particular topic.
I think what's gonna be different about this is how, I guess, people and the government are reacting to whatever the heck is going on.
Oh,
Because
for sure.
I think that's gonna be the biggest thing that he wants to like uh show off, I guess you can say, in this um version of UFO sightings or whatever it is exactly that's going on in this in that story. And I don't know, I'm curious if it was how he perceives it nowadays, if he sees it differently, or because of certain situations that are happening today, he wanted to not really like redo that story, but kind of, I guess, show off what his how everything is sort of affecting him in a sense, his mindset.
Yeah. No, for sure. Well, It's really interesting because I feel like even just listening to you talk about these movies just gets me so excited all over again. Because I'm like, I think all of the films that he makes to a certain extent, there is a lot to really, I think, delve into and just enjoy. For the most part, he always makes a very enjoyable movie. Like
Mhm.
that's just never not going to be the case. Um, but yeah, it's really interesting stuff. So with Duel, I had never heard of it up until I saw it mentioned in the documentary. And I'm like, and they had this one of my favorite sequences of the movie, when Mr. Man is in the diner and he's kind of having a full-blown anxiety attack because like
Mhm.
this freaking deranged lunatic who had been chasing him ended up parking. That's the part where it gets a little like the paranoia of it all. It's like, what the fuck? He's here? When
Mhm.
he realizes that the guy that's there, and he's really trying to piece together like who it is, looking at their features, what they're wearing, and then he obviously, ends up accosting somebody who is not even the right person, then runs away.
Mhm.
That whole sequence is pretty stellar. And I feel like that's really what the movie is here to do. I don't think Duel is a film that, by design and clearly by its limitations of it being a TV film, is gonna be one of the ones that we're gonna be, like, thinking about. It's not a movie that you think about really all that often at all, really. It's more kinda like a movie you sit down and you enjoy it. You kinda, like, let the experience pull you in as best it can, and then you don't really think about it ever again because it's not that kind of movie. But it is, I feel, in whether he was trying to or not, it very much was the film that kind of announced his arrival as a
Mhm.
filmmaker and what he can do, because a TV film, you're not meant to do much with it. And yet, very, very early on, because of just the sheer talent that he possesses, that to this very day, hardly anyone else does, the ability of how to place a camera and how
Yes.
to move a camera in many ways still remains unparalleled. And
Mm.
that's going to be one of the things that we're going to be uh, talking about a lot, because it's the through line that goes through all of his movies is who is the man behind the camera? How does he move the camera? Where does he put the camera? The blocking of the actors that go up, and around it. Like he is kind of in his own world at that point. And it's part of that Spielberg blend that or style. Like, he says to himself that, he's not like, he's not a Tarantino, he's not a what's it called? Or Scorsese or whatever. He doesn't have his own style but he calls himself a chameleon, in which like he's able to kind of like utilize every genre and mold it to the kind of movie that he usually makes.
Mhm.
But I will say though, if Spielberg does have a signature style, it's the camera work.
Yeah. Ye
And I think when you watch a movie and you see how it moves, you're watching a Spielberg movie.
For sure. I was noticing that from the get-go, and I love that they kept mentioning that in the documentary, where it's just like, he just knows how to tell a story with just the camera, with just, uh and I think who was it? I can't remember who it was exactly, but someone said, like, they can watch
Matt
the
Damon,
Matt Damon. I don't know about
Tom
that.
Hanks, or Tom.
No, no, well, as maybe you'll remember the quote, but someone said, like, they can watch Sugarland Express without any volume, without the dialogue. They can, like, they know what's going on, um throughout the whole movie without any sound, because that's how well he works the camera. And I was definitely noticed that when I saw Sugarland, because the way he would, just kept moving the camera within the car to see the other cops' reactions, how they're all moving, and just and then some parts almost look cartoonish. I love the moment where they went to go put gas, and then as soon as they left, all the other cops rolled in, going like, "We gotta fill up, fill up, fill up, fill up." And it's just like, and the people working the gas station are like, "What the hell is going on?" Like it was almost cartoonish in a way, but like he knows how to build up that intensity, but throw
Well, I
in a
mean,
lot of
one of the
comedy.
more infamous moments, that dolly zoom in Jaws,
Yeah,
when you have the chief on the beach already all stressed as hell, and then when he realizes something's going on, that's just one of the most infamous camera movements in all of cinematic history.
yeah, It's good.
And that alone just tells you it's like this is a guy that from the very beginning had it. And with Duel, the most interesting thing about this movie is how it's directed. And that got the attention of the right people to kind of like propel this guy forward into actually doing feature films, not just TV films. And TV films are fine too, but especially in those times, don't think of it. I think to myself, oh my God, Alexis, you're getting a little too old because there's now people younger than you who are getting into movies who are going to be like, they're in the streaming era. So as they come of age, they're thinking, well, streaming movies and theatrical films to an extent, it's not much difference because the same kind of actors do both. And, there are some streaming films that are better than theatrical films and vice versa. Sure. But this is a long time ago and the
Mhm.
world was different back then. And there is a sense of hierarchy. There's a term called TV actors or movie actors, right?
Mhm.
Which is like either all the best actors they would tell you are in movies. And kind of like the ones that were not good enough to be in movies are in TV. That's
Yeah.
where kind of that whole mentality came from. And while TV has advantages over film as far as like the medium is concerned, for the most part, even still, I would say to this very day, there is no substitute as far as what the power of the big screen can give you.
Mhm.
Um,
Especially
and that's something, yeah.
when you get like budget involved. Like
No, for
that's the thing
sure.
that made him stand out. Is just like for a TV movie, he made something pretty incredible with the limitations that he had, basically. And I mean, the
I mean, you can tell not much money was put into it, but I
mhm,
mean, I think to me, I really enjoy when I know I'm watching something that didn't cost all that much, but it's still making me feel what it's intended to make me feel. Like, for
mhm,
example, we do this reaction show on Agents of Shield. Agents of Shield in the era that it was made in, it's very low budget in comparison to other shows, and yet I'm never thinking about the cost. I'm never thinking about the cheapness of it because
mhm.
the story and everything else is so thrilling that I'm in it.
Yeah.
And Duel, I mean, just especially some of those sequences where I'm like, we're on the road and I'm like, what's gonna happen now? Like I'm
Mhm.
in it. I'm just like so sucked in to what's happening then and there. I'm not thinking about ultimately the cost of it.
Yeah.
And with Duel especially, um, I feel like throughout the career he had, there are moments, and I think this you can also kind of extrapolate this to any creative, any director, where you're gonna butt heads with the studio and the
Mhm.
financiers, the people who are basically paying you to make this art, and otherwise, would not be able to do so because of them. And there's this long-standing tradition of people thinking like, yeah, well, I mean, if they are paying for your movie, you do want to listen to what they have to say. We have this whole subset of movie thought about like executives and studio notes and this here and that there. And I feel like throughout the decades, they've gotten far worse and they've gotten much more corporate and micromanaged to the point where studio notes and executive point of view in the 2020s means as much. Um, if a crazy homeless person came in and gave his opinion, it's about as useless as you would think it would be. For the most part, I'm sure there are some. I don't know any of them. I can't think of many of them, but I'm sure there's some executives and studio heads who, well, Mike DeLuca, for example, at WB is doing an amazing job of like what projects that he greenlights, and he should be given the credit that he deserves for that. But in those times, while not wanted by creatives, that you don't want to have that creativity stifled. I think to an extent there was, some points for the that could be made. However, the specific points that were made about like what Spielberg should change to Duel were quite dumb in
Mhm.
that they wanted a big explosion at the end. How novel. They wanted the truck to just like blow up because and it's just so it's one of those things like, what are they thinking?
Mhm.
That doesn't fit with the rest of the movie at
Mhm.
all, you know?
Yeah. Well, like on the one hand, I can. It's dumb because that's all they're thinking is just explosions, and then that's it. You could have made. He could have made it in. He could have made it work within the story in some sense. You know,
Sure.
it's like because
But he
you
didn't
are
want to.
because like the truck is the villain. You want to see it destroyed, and so in that sense, it makes from that perspective, it makes sense.
You can
But
see the logic
the
there.
way he Spielberg works, it's like he knows how to tell the story with the camera, and so he explains it to them. Like, no, like you're seeing a dead body here, basically. You know, he's the oil. You see the oil dripping down, but it looks like blood. This wheel spinning, and then in the background you see the main guy. You know, he sees the work. I guess he's done to it and all that. Like you're seeing, the murder of a dead body, and it's supposed to be sort of like not tragic, and that's not what he was going for, but it's like, the work is done. That's all it is. It's not supposed to be like this grander thing of like, yes, I won. No, it's like finally it's done.
Yeah,
Something
for
like that.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, for what he was going for, an explosion would have just ruined the moment
Mm-hmm.
completely. Yeah. That won't be the last time that Spielberg either makes changes or does something at the behest of the studio. You may even actually cover another instance. Well, we'll get into it right now. Just we may jump around, so the order may not. We're not going to go movie by movie. We are, but there are some things that carry over, so it'll just make sense to go straight to it. So, with Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the ending you watched was the director's cut, and that has Richard Dreyfuss's character just flying off into the night sky, and that's it. But because the film was so successful, Sony kind of talked into Spielberg into doing, I think, what they called at that point a special edition, which would kind of be a extended version, but I guess studios or the studio was getting a lot of feedback from normies at the time about having a desire to see what does the inside of the mothership look like.
No, that's so dumb. Uh, I thought they were gonna talk about how the guy left or something. I thought that's what you were gonna
No,
bring up.
no,
I thought I was gonna be like, oh, why is he
no.
leaving his family behind and all
People
that?
didn't give a shit about that. Let's be real here.
Even
I
not
don't
even
think
Spielberg.
anybody in 77, I don't think anybody in 76 gave a shit about that. And it wasn't until years later I was like, well, that is kind of an issue. Even Spielberg himself feel like he said like if he were to make it again, he would not. He would have probably a different version of it, right? But no, the studio chose. I think people want to see the inside of the spaceship, and
Mm.
so they shot new material. I think a year later they released it. Spielberg hated it, and so he did a final version called the Director's Edition, which is like "fuck you." I'm
Mhm.
changing it back to how it was, and
No, yeah, no,
that's that.
that's far better. I like seeing the outside is just fine,
It really, it's all
and
you need. You
yeah,
don't need to see the inside. Like, what for?
es-
What purpose?
especially with the amount of work they put in for the outside of it. Like I can imagine myself what it looks like on the inside, and it's supposed, it's still keeping that mystery of like, man, what the heck is gonna happen to him inside. I was making jokes the whole time when I was watching it. Like when those little aliens were pulling him in, I was like, "Ah, yes, you're perfect to lay our eggs on." It's just like I was
Oh
just thinking he
Jesus!
was gonna be murdered. That's what I was thinking the whole time. It was funny. Um, Honestly though, my main note was take away that kiss. For,
Yes,
you remember the woman that he was with, climbing the mountain? He kisses her,
yes.
and I was just like, what? And it's just
I
like
don't think I remember
they
that.
do kiss, yeah. And the whole time I'm like, dude, you have a wife and kids. Like, what are you doing? And like it was seemingly like a romance thing. Like they were,
Uh,
you know,
okay. Well, we'll save that for later
okay.
because there's some interesting stuff in Close Encounters, but I think we're good with Duel. So we can go ahead and go on to the next movie,
Mm.
which, if I'm not mistaken, was from the year 1974. This is the Sugarland Express. This is a really interesting film because I don't know if you were, I mean, well, I think you might be now since you did watch the part of the documentary. But part of the inspiration for making this movie was there had been a news story at the time of something very similar to this.
Hmm.
And I think you can kind of, what's really interesting about these kind of films is like, they can kind of be a timestamp for like, at the time, a story like this for the audience of the early 1970s, this caused quite the stir. Um, Try living in these times, guys. I don't
Hmm.
think you would survive in it a minute because there's like
There's a story like that every every
every
day.
hour, every
Hmm.
minute. Like
And
it's
then
like
this
okay,
documentary made about it within a week.
yep, yeah. It's genuinely upsetting. Um, a girl with a great following. Every cop in the state was after her. Everybody else was behind her. Married small-time crooks. Uh, Lou Jean, right?
I don't remember the names.
I think it's Lou Jean. Well, that's Lou Jean and Clovis. Um, uh, lose their baby to the state of Texas and resolve to do whatever it takes to get him back. Lou Jean gets Clovis out of jail, and the two steal their son from his foster home, in addition to taking a highway patrolman hostage. As a massive dragnet starts to pursue them across Texas, the couple become unlikely folk heroes and even start to bond with the captive policeman. Um, Genuinely did not know what to expect with this movie for a
Hmm.
lot of reasons. First of which, it's not a film really anyone talks about these days. And that could have a lot to do with the fact that because at the time this movie was, kind of like reaping off of the hype of a sensationalized story, and because history has moved in a progressive state that uh it just feels so novel. It's like, well, why was this ever sensationalized by our standards? This is like something that people would like forget about in an hour after reading it on Twitter. Maybe that had a lot to do with it. It could be that because this was the 70s, it was overshadowed by Jaws and Close Encounters. I think that's really the real answer there.
Hmm.
It also could have a lot to do with the fact that while this was, Spielberg's announcement movie, really as a theatrical, you know, window, a theatrical debut, it did get kind of a backhanded positive review from Pauline Kael, which the documentary gets into about like, you know, Pauline Kael was one of the most well-known film critics ever. And at the time, she praised the direction of Spielberg in this movie, saying like basically, I'm paraphrasing. I don't have her words, but what I got from her review was, I can see greatness here. I can see the potential for greatness by the guy who's making this movie, but I'm not sure if he's there just yet, and I'm not sure if he's an adult yet or is still a man child. More or less is kind of like what I got from that review, which is pretty scathing. I
Hmm.
mean, it's a compliment to say, "Hey, I think you might be a great director one day, but you sure as hell are not one today,"
Hmm.
which is really interesting to say. So that got a lot of attention at the time. Um, but moving all that to the side, I genuinely found this movie and still find this movie. I think I saw it last year in the summertime when we were kind of still toying with the idea of like starting this back up. I had rewatched it and I still find this movie really enjoyable.
Hmm.
And also just enjoyable and fascinating because of what transpires and the idea that we have these two young people who are hopelessly in love and at the same time completely and utterly hopeless. Everything else. There is a sense of innocence in their naivete. I mean, they take pretty drastic actions
Mhm.
to do what they need to do. But even while they take those steps, you get the impression that we're still looking at children here, not really necessarily adults. And especially with some of the comedy that ensues through here is just like, are you guys really having this conversation right now in front of this guy? Like, can you imagine what the cop must be thinking? It's like, these are the guys that have like held me at gunpoint. Like, what is
Mhm.
going on here? This is, and what's interesting though is I feel like if you made that movie today, you would not have the same ending. And it's crazy how it's like, throughout most of his career, Spielberg has, kind of been dogged by these accusations of sentimentality, these accusations of like, pulling punches or they not needed to be pulled.
Mm.
And yet, you spend a lot of this movie really, I don't know if you like them at first, but they grow on you a lot.
Oh, yeah.
They really do more than I think that you would, especially the really weird dynamic with the police officer too. At some
Mhm.
point, the cop is just like, "Well, I guess I'm here. I might as well just make the most of it."
Yeah,
And
basically.
that's kind of what I got out of it. But by the end, you grow to like them,
Mhm.
and then as the ending transpires, it's pretty. It doesn't hold back about what happens there,
No, yeah.
and it's an ending that was foretold. They were telling them the whole way through. Even in a sense, you do feel for the older sheriff who's like, "Look, I've never had a person die on my watch. I don't want you to be the first one. This is not something that has to happen."
Mhm.
And it didn't need to happen. But the whole way through, it's like, where this is going. It's, well, despite its best efforts to make you feel like it could end positively because how positively the crowd reacts to what it is that they're doing, it's going to end in a place of tragedy. And you feel for them because like their plight is something that many people in their circumstance go through. It's like, look, it's even in the 70s, there are disadvantages to where it is you grow up around. There are disadvantages to the way the system is set up. There are people who turn to crime, to violence, because the institutions were not there to support them properly and are actively acting as barriers toward, as the circumstance would be in this film, being a family. It just it's pretty tough, and as we get there, it yeah, it ends pretty bleakly.
No, yeah.
David.
No. No, yeah. I expected them to cause like a whole bunch of chaos, damage. And I mean, they did some things, obviously, but I expected it to be a lot worse from the beginning, just because, yeah, these are kids making a stupid decision. But I, the movie did a great job at like making me like these characters, making me like the cop, and also the other characters. Like, there's technically the main characters are the bad guys, but there's not really a bad guy in
No.
this movie, which is I found interesting, and I completely forgot about that moment you mentioned about guessing he was a captain who was like, I don't want this to end in violence. Like I've never had to go that far before, and I don't want it to do it now. Which I really like that because it's shows you that maybe there's some hopefulness here that doesn't have to end in tragedy, and it doesn't have to escalate to a big shootout. If it leads to that. Um,
And can I just say, I think as somebody who watched this movie for the first time in the 2020s,
mhm.
and I take no pleasure in saying this or any delight, I actually feel quite sad that things have changed so horribly, but like it is such a novel idea. The fact that two of the principal characters in this film are law enforcement, and genuinely, based on what we see, they're really good people.
Mhm.
And they don't want to harm these
Mhm.
people. They actively take measure after measure to prevent violence
Mhm.
because they genuinely don't want to hurt or harm them.
Yeah, they'll follow the law. They'll do what needs to be done,
Yeah.
but not. But violence isn't the thing that needs to be done. He
Yeah.
tries to
And
calm them
that's not
down.
what you see. That's not, I mean, compare that to law enforcement in one battle after another,
Mhm.
where they take delight in the brutality.
Mhm.
They take delight in the discrimination, the prejudice, and the hate, where they're just unambiguously evil pieces of shit.
Mhm.
I mean, in one battle after another, again, it's like a weird alternate reality. We go from what we see in this film to one battle where at one point Colonel Lockjaw says we're going to go into Bacton Cross full of wet and stinkies,
Mhm. Just using the law.
raiding meat pack factories, like like the brutality and just the sense of like the complete and utter absence of morality, moral code. It's just like gone.
Mhm.
But in Sugarland Express, it's like a whole different bizarro world when you compare it to what we live through today. It's funny, it's like look in the 2010s, we had the emergence of well, not the emergence, but like I think the consciousness nationally of being much more uh alert to acts of police brutality. That wasn't good enough. Now we have something more and
Mhm.
it's even worse and and it's bad, but that's just something that kinda stood out to me when you were talking about just that. It's like, wow, we've come a long way,
Mhm.
not in the best way
Yeah.
either. But yeah. So, I don't know. I don't know. This is a really interesting film, and I don't know if, there will be a reappraisal on this one. I guess time will tell.
Mhm.
But, again, it's just a very enjoyable watch,
No, yeah.
like the characters, and to me, it's like it's not, I think, what one would assume a first movie to be. In a way, it's kind of low key. It's kinda, like, very laid back for the most
Mhm.
part. There are moments where it kinda just, like, hits back hits you, um, but it certainly isn't the flashiest directorial debut. Um,
No, yeah.
it's really interesting what Spielberg decides to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you want the movie to look visually nice, but I'm talking about like color, lighting, brightness of
Yeah.
it. It's always just been camera work. How he wants to move it, how he wants to place it. He wants to tell as much story within a single frame, basically. Pictures that says 1,000 words. I mean, the I think didn't he use like the reflection of when they were in the RV and they were looking at some Looney Tunes cartoon from a drive-in. I think he was showing it through the reflection, then showing the characters, and the
Yeah.
husband was reenacting it,
Yeah.
um, doing the voices and all that. Like that's just good camera work right there. And then those moments when I think it was the captain when he first shows up. He's trying to get close to the car. You see even in the documentary where like he's moving up next to it. It's all one shot. You see, he pulls out. You see the inside of it. They're trying to like look at each other. Um, trying to tell him like back off, and then he does backs away, and then it's just the cutting back and forth between seeing him inside the car versus seeing the others. Like it's editing and camera work that he always takes advantage of and tries to tell as much as he can, and it's fucking great. Um, and also too, uh, there were some great comedy bits in this one. I mentioned the one with the when going in the gas station and everything, but I just remembered the moment where she had to go to the bathroom and they set up the what is it porta potty in the field, and they're going. I was like, okay, go. No wait, it's like let me do this, and it's like no wait, no wait. It's just like constantly going back and forth, and she's just like, "Are you kidding me, dude? What else?" And but yeah, it was funny. Um,
How long was she waiting for them to deliver a freaking portable
mhm.
for her to use the restroom? That's what I want to know. Like,
I mean, who knows?
something else that came to mind is at some point there's like a welcoming parade for them, and then they're throwing a whole bunch of items into the car. At one point,
Mhm.
they give her a piglet.
Yeah.
I think she like hands it back because I think it was peeing on her or whatever it was.
Mhm.
Um,
And then
no, yeah,
she was telling the lady to like buy her some makeup and stuff to make her look nice. But she kept doing the same thing as the porta potty thing. It's like, no wait, come buy me this. No wait, buy me this too. It's just, oh my gosh. Um, yeah, yeah. The way they build it up, um, how everyone got involved was actually really interesting, especially those two policemen that just barely got new cop cars. And I don't know, they're from like a completely different state or something. I don't know, but they fucking drove hours and hours only to just crash immediately. Which I don't. I think that might have been the most anticlimactic part of the movie, but
maybe there was. You just reminded me of another layer to this, which was at some point we have these people who they're just normal guys,
mhm,
but because they want to take the law into their own hands, they basically are vigilantes.
mhm.
They go in, seek them out for themselves, and kind of get in the way, obviously. And what I loved about this is that they end up getting arrested
Yeah.
because they broke the law.
Hmm.
And again, when you think about where we are right now in 2026, of like so many hapless buffoons taking the law into their own hands, Kyle Rittenhouse, just and actually getting people killed, and yet we can't um lambast dumbasses anymore, because if they happen to belong to a political ideology, you have a whole media apparatus that will support them and rehabilitate their image into them being a celebrity for people who want to continue to be idiots. But to me, it felt good. It's like, yeah, you go, law enforcement, arresting those morons that are just getting in the freaking way. If there's anything I can't stand, even more so than, injustice or evil happening, is buffoons thinking that the law does not apply to them and thinking that, oh, well, I'll just go take care of it. It kind of reminds me, and I really was like, I got so angry. If you recall Stranger Things season 4,
Mm.
those high school kids who were like, okay, well, since the cops are idiots, we're gonna go execute Billy.
Hmm.
We'll just take the law into our own hands
Yeah.
because we can. We can, and fuck you. What are you gonna do?
Hmm.
Basically, I hate people like that so much.
Mm.
And it felt good to see here common sense win out at the end of the day. It's like, no, fuck you. We're taking you downtown. You had no business being here. You went out of your way to get yourself arrested, to cause harm. Fuck you. I just man, you're reminding me of some triggering things that happened here.
I guess.
I was like, no, right? Um, but yeah. Yeah. Shall we move on to the Big Kahuna?
Yeah.
Okay. 1977, I'm sorry, 1975. This is the movie that changed movies forever. This is the first genuine blockbuster where people waited block after block after block in line to catch this movie. The hysteria, the hype, first of all, to catch people's attention to go into it, and the hysteria this caused in the collective psyche and consciousness after. You have genuinely one of the single most impactful films ever,
Mm.
just ever. I think there are certain staples in film history. The Wizard of Oz is definitely one of them. Jaws is also one of them as well. This is Jaws, the terrifying motion picture from the terrifying #1 bestseller. When the seaside community of Amity finds itself under attack by a dangerous great white shark. The town's chief of police, a young marine biologist, and a grizzled shark hunter embark on a desperate quest to kill the beast before it strikes again. Starring Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, and Richard Dreyfuss. Far be it for us to have anything original to say about this movie. Because we probably aren't going to.
Mm-hmm.
But what we can say is, I know, David, you just saw this, but I've watched this movie my whole life.
Mm.
I know this is one of the films my dad introduced me to. This would be one of his regulars that when it would be on TV, he would show me. Yes, like many people, this was my first, I feel like, real exposure into what a shark was and what a shark could do, and it implanted myself as one of my biggest fears of my life, for sure. There isn't any time where I'm at a beach and I'm not thinking about, is there a shark nearby? Like, even if I'm on the beach or in the water, it's never quite deterred me from going into the water, but it's always on my mind. It's like, am I about to be eaten right now? It's just like, this is like the what?
Well, I was gonna ask, have you ever been to a place where you can swim with sharks?
Well, I mean, the ocean. You
No,
never
but
know
like
when
no,
one's
but I
gonna
mean,
be
I'm
like
talking about like
nearby.
some theme park where you actually like in the water, they put you next to a shark, and like not actually like a big white or
I
anything
would
like
never
that.
do that.
Oh, okay, I
I would
was.
never do
It was
that.
just like a little. Oh, was it? I think they call it like a catfish shark or something like that. It was very small,
It's
but
not the
like
same
they
thing.
dropped like a piece of meat into the water and it just immediately. So I meant something like that, not like an actual like great white or anything like that.
No, okay. No. I also love the beach. I love the ocean. It's one of my great fascinations of my life. When I think of nature, I think of the water, I think of the ocean, which is why I love movies like Finding Nemo, and Little Mermaid, and
Luca.
Avatar also, and Luca. Yeah, Avatar also. 'Cause, literally, Avatar and the Way of Water specifically is a movie made to it's kind of like an ode to nature and the oceans of nature. There were a lot of years, I think in my teenage years, where I just wouldn't watch this movie.
Hmm.
It was a film that I saw, as an adolescent, and it didn't quite come back up until, goodness me, maybe just a few years ago, where it was like, okay, I've grown a lot and changed a lot since I was a kid. My overall interests and taste in film have also, evolved. So Jaws is more so a movie about like, okay, it's the shark and yeah, it's scary, and there wasn't much more to it, as a kid when I watched it. So I really wanted to see what it would feel like, how it would change as an adult. And needless to say, the whole thing, it kind of became a whole different movie watching it as an adult for a lot of reasons. I feel like genuinely, putting the shark stuff to the side, every single shot, I, and even Roy Scheider, all the stuff that happens on land before we even get into the water. Because mainly as a kid, I just remember the water stuff, not so much the land stuff, but all that. That's the film where we're having incredible conversations. We're getting to know the characters, and I think also tying it into current events, reliving this movie. I think I saw it sometime during the pandemic. And what happens in this movie? The mayor of Amity refuses to close the beach because how dare real world events come into and interfere our ability to make money, which is what was happening in the real world at the moment. Businesses, big tech individuals, and the anti-lockdown protesters Funny how those we couldn't shoot, right? But okay. But the anti-lockdown protesters were like, open it up, open it up. This was summer 2020. Like a full, almost a year before a vaccine even came out. There was social distancing. Nothing was open because how could there be anything open?
Mm.
And yet, there were some that were doing a little bit of a hybrid experimentation of like, okay, let's go ahead and open things up and let's see how things go. Yeah, I mean, and then of course in the movie you have the mayor who was like, but here's the difference, of course. In the movie, the mayor was like, oh my God, what the fuck did I do? My
Mm-hmm.
son was there. In real world, people died. Okay. Anyway, I made $20. So that's always kind of like a really frustrating part of the film. It's just like, but it's also very realistic, which is like they're telling you what is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
The
I like
monster is going to bite your head off. Are
the
you going to turn away or are you going to walk straight to it?
the marine biologist was the best character in the movie, and I loved. It wasn't his first line, but like it was one of the first ones where he comes into the build. No, he was seeing these two guys getting ready to go out into the water, and like he's trying to tell them like, I wouldn't go out there, guys. Like you're not gonna survive with what you have and all that. Um, and then he goes inside the building. He meets the main guy, and he just goes, "By the way, these two dudes are gonna die out there. By the way, like he just knows it right away. Like they're not gonna make it if they go out there. By the way, you should probably stop them." So yeah, he was the best character.
No, he adds in a lot of, well, I mean, obviously comic relief, but it's a really interesting dynamic that you have with the three characters. You have the police chief, who's very much the straight man. And you have Shaw, who's just like this loony, kooky, eccentric, just like out there, in some ways kind of deranged and unhinged presence. And then you have Hooper, who's the marine biologist, and he, it's kind of sarcastic, but then as the film progresses, he kind of, in some ways, like really unnerved by uh by Shaw, or Shaw's character, I should say. Um, and it kind of turns into kind of this weird, I guess, sense of rivalry. What goes on between the two of them, and it's very much, it speaks to a real rivalry of sorts and a real divide, especially in those times. The whole, you know, um, Shaw comes from this working class outfit, and he looks down on Hooper because um he's not really in the field. He's that he knows of, or I guess he assumes he's not. He assumes he's like a city boy, a college boy. So you have that divide kind of embedded into like how these two automatically don't care very much for one another.
Mm.
That's the first thing that you see there. Um, and then we get to the water, and I can't think of too many films that were made quite like this. You may have looked into the disastrous behind the scenes. Infamously one of the most disastrous productions in the history of Hollywood. And it really didn't need to be this way. You could say and kind of like put the blame entirely on Spielberg's hubris for doing this because, when the film executives had this in mind. Oh, by the way, just real quick,
Mm.
uh, Spielberg wasn't the first person who had the job to direct this movie. There was somebody else who they had hired, but that person they hired was annoying the screenwriters, or I guess the author of the book, because he kept referring to it as the whale movie.
Oh my god, I get why, but
It didn't last very long, so they got
yeah.
rid of him and they ended up getting Spielberg. Anywho, um, Spielberg had the bright idea to shoot this movie not on a set. They shot this on the ocean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
which
I
did not work out well for him as far as making this thing. It was production hell. The shark
Mhm,
sank several times. That in and of itself is a different thing where it's like, look, that was quite fortuitous. The shark not being available for much of the movie because it kind of forced them to not show it all that often, and it kind of added a lot more to the suspenseful nature.
mhm,
So that ended up working out well for them. And the fact that they're actually on the ocean did make it look far more realistic than it would have. It was just on, let's just say, a pool or whatever it was. So it worked out great in the end. It, especially 50 years later. Uh, but while you're making it, it was a long shoot.
mhm,
There was no end in sight. The shark kept breaking down, and it got so bad. Again, this is the first real big production that he has, and it got so bad that at some point, executives were trying to shut this down and just kill it completely. Which, if you think about it, kind of has echoes of Star Wars, which is where the studios of 20th Century Fox were also looking at this George Lucas production, and they were like, enough, we're
mhm,
done with it. You have to stop filming by the end of the week. That's it, you're done. The patience definitely wore thin. And in the case of Spielberg, and unfortunately, despite the success that he had with this film and future films, it kind of gave him this reputation of going over budget and overextending the shooting days or the shooting schedule. And that stuck with him all the way up to Indiana Jones, the first film, where George Lucas was like, I want you to direct this movie. Um, but all of the studios were kind of like saying, no, we're not going to make this George Lucas. First of all, he just did Star Wars.
mhm,
You're going to say no to George Lucas. He's like shopping a property to you.
mhm.
And they were saying, we'll make it, but you can't have this Spielberg guy make it because he just goes over budget and he overextends in the days of shooting. We can't have this. Um, that did not deter George. Obviously, he stood by him, and Paramount um were the ones that ended up agreeing, so long as Spielberg promised to make sure this thing would not take a million years to shoot. And he fulfilled his word to
Mm.
the letter. And of course, those films were
No, yeah.
there were three
Successful.
of them, so they were very successful, obviously. And still to this very day, they live in the consciousness to some extent. But yeah, I kind of it all stems from this production of like getting a bad reputation of sorts as far as like the actual shooting of it. However, when you take into account the final product, it's kind of hard to argue with the method when it's as good as it is, you
Mhm.
know.
And um, it's very. I think it's understandable why you thought it would be pretty easy to shoot it in the ocean. But then I like the details that that you talked about in the documentary, being like, I had no idea about changing of the tides, the wind, the fucking, and then you adding on to the whole shark not working.
It's like, what's worse, shooting in the ocean or shooting in the desert?
Mm,
Because things can change.
yeah.
And one of his favorite films that he talks about, Lawrence of Arabia, was actually a film in the desert, and
Yeah.
how they were able to capture certain shots for that movie still to this very day kind of mystify
Mm,
everybody.
yeah. And then no, yeah, it definitely worked out in the end too, just because there's a certain like roughness, I guess you can say, of how all the actors looked uh, in the movie. Like maybe something about just having to deal with it themselves, like made it look like, oh my gosh, they've been out here for days. Like they're getting tired of it. They just want this to
Robert
end.
Shaw showed up constantly hammered,
Oh yeah,
or so that's another wrinkle. Maybe it helped his performance, who knows? But
maybe.
I mean, that was another element to deal with here.
So yeah, it could have been done easier just doing it in some set with like a little pool
Yeah,
or the big
but
pool.
just I feel like what the documentary does a good job uh of kind of getting you in the headspace of Spielberg. His career is just starting. In this production, A Million Ways to One is going so horribly. Nothing is going his way.
Mm,
And you think to yourself, oh my God, I just got here. And now they're never, ever going to let me back here again
mhm,
after this disaster. Like the pressure. I don't know how he handled it, to tell you the truth, because you're probably working with people who are kind of like second guessing you and doubting you, and you're getting some bad feedback from the people, the higher ups at the studio on a daily basis. It's just really kind of crushing to go
mm,
through all of this. But by sheer will, by a sheer miracle, and just in the fact that Spielberg is a capable filmmaker in his own right, he was able to succeed. Not only did this pass, but it became a film that is synonymous with movies to this very day. And at the time, I actually was watching one of the new films that was actually just nominated for an Oscar last week, The Secret Agent with Wagner Moura, the Brazilian film. And in the beginning of the movie, this takes place in the year 1977. So this is about 2 years after Jaws. And there's a scene where Wagner Moura's son is kind of recreating the poster for Jaws, and he's so into it, and he's actually like a little bit peeved that like his grandfather, they haven't let him watch the movie yet because it's they said that it's too scary for you to handle. Uh, really curious um about that, but no, this changed the culture in ways that just really can't be quantified for
mm.
a lot of reasons. Um, have we mentioned John Williams yet?
Oh my gosh, yes, dude.
We need to talk about
All
that.
okay. Well, let me bring up the horror aspect of it. I mentioned before that
Sure.
like I understand why people found this scary. My dad, every time we ever even brought up Jaws, he always brings up the fact that people were scared to get into the ocean after watching that movie. For the longest time, and so
And they to an extent they still are,
the
to this very day, so
mhm,
you can't not think about that when you're near water.
yeah, but so yeah, when I was watching it, I was very curious about the horror aspect of it, and yeah, I understand why people were scared of it. Even when that moment where his kid was in like the shallow end of the beach, you really are thinking like he's gonna be safe, right? But then you see the shark going in, and you're like, "There's no way! How could you do that? There's no way!" So like, even I was kind of going like, "Does the kid get hurt?" There's because I don't know what happens in this movie, so it was
If I'm not mistaken, doesn't a dog get eaten too?
a dog does get in. You don't see that
Yeah.
one for sure, but
You don't
it's
see
there.
it, but you kinda know what happened.
Hmm. Yeah, and so yeah, that was very surprising, and it was I can see the intense moments how people felt about it when they first saw it. So that was really interesting. And then when it comes to the music, all I ever heard was just the da 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 da
Yeah.
da. That's honestly thought that was just the whole score, but no. You get to the ocean and the chase scenes and everything. The
Oh,
music
wow,
is so
yeah.
fun. I'm like, dude, this is
Yes.
awesome. What the heck?
It's
I
like that main theme is so iconic that I feel people don't mention the rest of that
mhm.
score, which is amazing.
Yeah, I, like it's Indiana Jones type of fun, where it's
Yeah,
just
yeah. I mean, it's John Williams, so it would be, you know?
yeah, for sure. But like, I think that's the one thing where I wish I would have seen it in theaters. Is just listening to the score.
You could have, you
I
could have.
know,
I
I
mean,
know.
it just came out a couple of times. I mean, one of the things I will mention is like I've had the treat of being able to watch this 3 times in theaters, and every time is like incredible. I was able to watch this with Alexis and Kyle at the Universal City Walk Theater, the IMAX.
Mm,
Blown away.
yep.
And then this last, I want to say September, saw it 2 times for its 50th anniversary re-release in 3D, which is interesting. In 3D, it's not really again 3D. I don't really care for it unless it's Avatar. Then
Hmm.
I'll take the bullet for it. But that one was like okay, sure, whatever. But You gotta watch that movie in a theater. That one's just
Mhm.
like you can't like not do it. Um, but yeah, because
Mhm.
the action too, as you were saying.
Yeah.
Again, there's not really a shark there, and yet they make you believe it that it's there,
Mhm.
and they do that in large part, obviously, because any Spielberg Williams collaboration there is, the music is a character in the story.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, in that chase sequence, I was definitely thinking of people were comparing the chase scene in Godzilla minus one when they were in the ocean to
Yeah.
Jaws and everything. And so when I was watching it, I was kind of like, oh, I can see why people were making comparisons to uh, both of those movies. That's actually really interesting. And yeah, the chase scenes were genuinely fun. The use of the barrels was. I kind of thought that was just already like a planned thing, but the documentary they were like, "Nah, we kind of added that in because we didn't have a shark," which I was like,
Yeah.
"Dang, that's smart, cool." Um, but yeah, the use of the barrels was really really cool, especially when like once you see it pop up, you're like, "Okay, go go go!" Like you're with them. You want this thing dead.
It's really interesting. Part of the legacy of this movie are the sequels. I don't think I've ever sat down and watched any of them. I maybe have seen clips on various reviews,
Mm,
or what have you, but like, I mean, it should go without. It doesn't need to be doesn't need to be said that clearly they're far inferior,
mm,
just for the sole reason that Spielberg is not involved in them at all.
yeah.
But there's that. Let me actually get into some comments here from uh from some critics that I follow, specifically on Letterboxd, that I think might be interesting. Um, let's see here. Ethan Simi. This is from July 2024. There's something sensational about seeing such a masterful, iconic film on 35 millimeter with a massive, energetic crowd. Jaws undoubtedly remains an all-timer. Some insane split diopter shots. Has no right to be as funny as it is. Brody's wife strolling into his room in the middle of the day, handing him a drink and saying, "Do you want to get drunk and fool around?" is beyond words. It's so epic and possesses an outstanding social, economic, political narrative. The fact that this film, 50 years later, can still induce so much dread, panic, and tension is unrivaled. Spielberg did everything right. It's the ultimate movie. I started to tear up when he shot the shark like the magic of movies. Here's another one here. This is actually from June 2020. To talk about Jaws eventually just turns into a list of superlative elements, working harmoniously in pursuit of particular tones and genres. It's a vicious horror film, a daring adventure, a portrait of masculine roles, as well as a vision of small community unsettled by a natural force. Funny, scary, genuinely dramatic, edited to perfection, etc. It's all there. It's a defining movie, motion picture, film, yes, to whatever you call these things, but the devil is in the details. And with each rewatch, Jaws finds a new way to impress me. On this viewing, it struck me as an essential text of man versus nature, with the orca, the name of the boat, and the water surrounding them being the stage of their own individual reckoning. Spielberg is careful in how he places the actors in the frame, and their reaction to the unfolding events. How they move and interact with the environment is always a product of the shark's control over the situation. As a battle of wits and strength, the shark puts up a hell of a fight, but Spielberg is aware that it isn't just a war for Amity Island, but for those men who remain confident in who they are as people, small specks in a vast, unforgiving world. All right, one more thing about this. There is a sequence in the film where we have Robert Shaw, and he gets into a monologue
Mm,
about his experience as being one of the people who survived the sinking of the Indianapolis. 1945, after the bomb had been delivered in World War II. One of the most horrific shark incidents in recorded history. Uh, to me, to this very day, I think it's still one of the most perfectly executed sequences in the history of movies.
Mm.
And it's one of these that just always pulls you in because so much of the film it's kind of working against this in the sense that you're not quite sure who this guy is. You know, sometimes you can kind of dismiss him as a kook, um, but if there is a reason for the insanity, there's your reason
Mm.
to survive something like that.
Yeah.
What a horrible experience.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I've heard it many times. Best monologues, best moment in the film. I think I even saw it wasn't in the documentary that we were watching, but I've seen it in other videos where they said that was the moment for them to be like they want to push through to finishing this movie. They thought that this was the moment where they had like a good thing going on. So yeah, I like the moment too. I've seen clips of it many times, so I wasn't like surprised by it, sadly. But yeah, it's fantastic moment. I mean, even I can't think of a monologue that was as good as that. So yeah, fantastic moment.
I doubt there will ever be a time when we're not thinking about this movie. It's just always, I think, going to be in the conscious, the collective consciousness of film goers everywhere. And to say nothing more, which we could, but like, what more iconography can we lift from this? Probably one of the most well-known movie posters ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of simple in a sense with just the shark person on top of it. Which you don't
I don't know if you
get.
can see from it's right behind me. I don't know if you can see the right. You can see my fingers
Yeah, I
right
see
there.
it
Can you
now.
see it?
Yeah.
You can see right there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of crap behind me, but if you kind of follow my finger, it's
Yeah,
right
it's a
there.
Where's Waldo type of thing. But
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a very simple, which you don't really get a lot in movie posters these days. It's always the face. it's always you. Will probably
The floating
be like,
heads.
the floating heads for sure. That's how it'd be today. You see those three characters, they're floating heads with the ocean on the bottom, and maybe you see like the fin coming out of it. That's probably how it would be done today. But nah, you Jaws shark. It's like the main character, I guess you can say, in the movie, and that's how it should be.
For sure. Well, without any further ado, shall we get into our final entry for the day? This is going to be from the year 1977. The movie is called Close Encounters of the Third Kind. We Are Not Alone. After an encounter with UFOs, an electricity linesman feels undeniably drawn to an isolated area in the wilderness where something spectacular is about to happen. Starring Richard Dreyfuss, Terry Garr, Francois Truffaut. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. This is an interesting film. I gotta tell you. Go ahead.
Okay.
You go ahead.
I mean, yeah, like I said, like this is sort of the only one that it's what I expected. The whole mystery of it, like what the heck are these things? What do they want? Like that was pretty much what I expected it to be. I think maybe the only surprise was at one point I went, "This is a great Agents of Shield episode," because of the whole mountain on his head. He's like, "What is this? Like, there's something in my mind. I know what it is."
Oh my god, I didn't even make that connection, but you're so right. It's like he had the coordinates to a location, and it's related to something alien. That's so Phil Coulson in the first two seasons. I didn't even make that connection.
Yeah. So
Wow.
I was just thinking that at some point. I'm like, oh hey, like Agents of Shield. I was making a bunch of references honestly while I was watching this movie. When they were communicating with the aliens with the piano, I was like, oh, this is what was it, Monsters versus Aliens?
Well, the opposite.
Yeah,
You could
opposite,
say
obviously.
Monsters versus Aliens got that from this.
Yeah. So yeah, I was that was just going through my mind the whole time. But yeah, like I said, the whole mystery of it. I liked the family dynamic of it all. It just was kind of gone in the end.
Oh
Like
yeah, it was pretty much gone.
yeah,
Eh,
just
it's actually
because
kind of funny how that just dropped completely.
that's why I was so like, why did he kiss her? Like, bro, you just cheated on your wife, and like it
Well,
did see.
okay, I'm gonna. How can I put this? Um, to give him, this is not gonna make you feel better.
Mm,
I'll just say that for me, they did kind of walk out of his life. Like they drove away and they were like, "Deuces, we're out of
yes,
here." And
but it was for a good reason though. It wasn't like she was being an asshole
no,
about it. But
I'm not
so,
arguing that at all. You are correct. It was for a very good reason. But as far as everyone was concerned, they went Splitsville,
mhm.
and
No,
they ain't coming back. He's not coming back.
I mean,
That
honestly,
that's
ultimately, like I just it's weird. It was weird for me at the end because he just kind of never talks about them. I would have at least would have liked because the reason so they were in the mountain and he wanted to go down there. He was like, I have to go down there. I need to see it like this up close, you know. And she was just and for her, she was like, I don't want to go down there. My son's not there, so like there's just no point for me. And I don't want to get too excited about this. Um, and like they're looking at each other like it was sort of romantic. I'm like, there's no way they're gonna kiss, right? And they do, and I'm like, dude, you have a family. You just cheated on her. What the hell? I would have preferred it if it was just like they hugged and he goes, I'll go down there and you know, I'll see if I can find your son.
is it still
Maybe.
cheating if she left him?
I mean, they're still
She legit
married,
left him.
but they're still
What does that
married
mean
though.
anymore? If what does that mean if they're not in each other's lives?
But like, I think it
Okay,
was. I think for
to
in
be
my mind
clear,
too.
I'm not here to be all that like
No, I
personal
know.
about that shit. I'm just letting you know it's like I understand why it bothered you and why it bothers people.
Hmm.
I will just say that for me, I cared so much less about that than what it does for me ultimately with the ending of like for me, which I'll get into in a minute. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's just the kiss that bothers me. Like him leaving, I actually don't mind that.
Oh,
Yeah, like I don't. That's perfectly fine. I think he knew, in the sense that like this is something that he has to do. Like there's because they can't just be. He had that memory or vision of the mountain just to be there. I don't think that was the case. I think there need to be something more, and him leaving is that reason. So I understand why he did it. It was just that kiss that bothered me. I think he would have been. It would have been cool or better to just have them hug. He'll be like, us, I'll be down there. If hopefully I can talk to these aliens or something to give back your son, or I don't know. And then he goes, whatever happens to me, they'll like tell my family I love them or something. Like that would have been perfectly fine. And then when he leaves, it's like cool. He, yeah, she'll get them. She'll send the message out. So that I don't mind. It was just the kiss itself.
um. So how do you feel about the rest of the movie?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, yeah. The rest of the movie was still good. The actor who was that was the marine biologist from Jaws. He was still great. He still had some funny moments. Uh, and especially just his descent, I guess you can say, to madness was actually pretty interesting. It didn't go too crazy, and I liked how it was hurting him. I feel like I've seen with others that it's just they want to get more confident with it. They feel like, no, 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 I am right. With him, it's just I don't know what the heck is going on, and I'm sorry that like it's bothering everyone. And then every single time he wants to let it go, something happens where he's like, wait a minute, I can figure this out. And when he does figure it out, the whole time I'm like, did you have to do it inside the house? And I mean, I can understand why in the plot sense, because he needed to have the TV in there. But I mean, it's not really a big problem. But I'm just kind of like, I think that it would have been funny if the wife yelled like, "Do you have to do it inside a guy?" But that was a cool sculpture. And actually, I like that it was it was plot relevant because when they were going up the mountain, uh, the other two people that were with him, they were like, I have no idea where to go. Like, how do we get up there?" And he's like, "Oh, there's like this river that we can go up there, and it'll take us to the top. There's like a trail." They're like, "How do you know that?" It's like, try building it next time instead of drawing it. And I'm like, that's interesting. That's really cool.
Yeah. Um, what I liked so much about the film in the end is, and this is why movies are magical,
Hmm.
because to me, what they showed at the end of the film, and ultimately why I think it works on so many people, it's kind of like seeing like a dream come true, and you're seeing humanity take this step in a positive direction. You're seeing what feels like two ancient civilizations of different species meet, two empires, if you will.
Hmm.
And there's just this moment of, it's going to be okay. We're both going to be better because of this.
Hmm.
And despite how different our species work and look like, we're here, we're finally meeting, and we're going to help each other be better into the future.
Hmm.
It's just,
Yeah,
for me,
it's
I'm just overcome with emotion thinking about that, because that's ultimately where I want to be, where we want to be as a people, as a society. We can't get there quite yet, but I think that speaks to people who want the best for humanity,
hmm.
you know?
It's that sense of wonder that he always brings
Yeah.
up. I think this is like the one. I guess no, the first one that he brings that sense of wonder into his movies. You see that next with Indiana Jones, where it's more so that wonder of adventure of like, how are we going to get to the next moment, to the next discovery, because that's kind of what happens with Indiana Jones. He figures something out, goes where it leads him, and then on the moment it's like another almost magical thing happening, where magical discovery, and that just leads him to another place. And then T, of course, where it's just that ending is like the moment, I guess you could say, in all of his
Yeah.
filmography, of that sense of wonder and adventure they always bring about. And even with some of the ones that aren't good, the Crystal Skull, Ready Player One, he does
There are
try to bring
moments in
that,
them. There,
yeah,
yeah.
into his other movies. And so, yeah, this is, Jaws was like the one that made him famous, but I can almost say like Close Encounters was the one that really set the tone of what his movies will be, or what kind of stories he wants to tell.
Here's a funny, interesting take. Cody Derricks on Letterboxd. From Roy's perspective, it's all wonderment and important. To everyone else in his life, it's a breakdown. I really can't read the end sequence as anything but a total psychotic break. he he faces no pushback once he arrives on site, and he of all people gets singled out and chosen to ascend. He sees the aliens communicating with us because he can't do the same with his fellow humans. A complete delusional separation from reality, and so very, very sad. That
That
would be that's a
so.
reading of it.
Actually, those other people with the red suits, were those the ones in the helicopter, or those were completely different people?
I don't know.
Okay, I don't think they were the ones in the helicopter, but I thought that was funny. Where it was just him being pulled in. It's like, oh, y'all were ready to go, but nah, sorry, you weren't chosen. So I found that kind of funny. Um, but I
Yeah.
honestly though it was the ones that like that stayed behind that I actually find more interesting because it just makes sense from a plot point why what is it, Dreyfus left. Um, that was sort of a setup, but it is the other ones that stayed behind that I find more interesting. They're the ones who are like just seeing something literally out of this world, and you can tell even when they were first communicating with it, like not the ship taking Dreyfus's character away, but like when they were just those three ships, they communicated and then left. You can tell from their reaction that like their life has been changed. Not like not really much, but it does feel like almost like a hopeful thing that this feels something different.
Yeah. Um, what's this guy's name? Silent Dawn, Letterboxd. If Jaws was the rise of the commercial blockbuster, albeit one with sharp, savage, technical bravura and small character dynamics, then Close Encounters was the setting sun of abstract, sprawling, experimental science fiction. Spielberg's trademarks are all here in abundance: crumbling family units, cross-talking, sustained sequences of suspense. But the focus in this 1977 classic is primarily one of sculpture and confrontation, engagement and rapport. Spielberg communicates through universal methods of information, TVs, radio signals, air traffic controllers, etc., but deliberately keeps Roy in the dark to fend for his own journey, one formed via artistic creation and sculpting of visions and flashes of inspiration. Much of Close Encounters is hinged on the inability to understand the unknown and the unspoken acknowledgement that it's okay to embrace the mystery. Roy being led into the light of the mothership is enough to bring on the tears, but when he glances back towards Lacombe, an eye-to-eye connection of the highest possible communication, language, statistics, scientific progress collapse in the face of unity and empathetic solidarity. It isn't Stephen's most beautiful or heavenly or tender endeavor, but it's certainly his most staggering. Um, James Lipton. I don't know if you've seen this clip. I sent it over to you on Messenger. Can you open it?
Yeah,
It's like 30 seconds. This is a clip that we simply cannot address because I believe this was done in the year 2001, many, many years after Close Encounters, obviously. And James Lipton, the interviewer, makes a connection with what he sees in this movie to Spielberg's own family history. And Spielberg is completely stunned because, and he can tell, was not at all the intent of what happened here. Let me know when you're ready to play.
Your father was a computer scientist. Your mother was a musician. When the spaceship lands, how do they communicate?
That's a very good question. I like that. You've answered the question.
They make music on their computers, and they are able to speak to each other.
And you see, I'd love to say, I intended that, and I realized that was my mother and father, but not until this moment.
that's really interesting and so funny because that does happen a lot with other directors. I think the funniest one I always hear is with Kevin Smith, where someone reviewed was it Clerks, because it was filmed in black and white, and some reviewer said it was filmed in black and white to show the perspective of a security camera in some shop, and he's like, not my intention, it was just cheaper that way, but I'm gonna roll with that. It's a different different kind of thing, but like it that does tend to happen where people see more to it than they can, and they're just kind of like, huh, I didn't think of it like that subconsciously. That's interesting.
That's hilarious. I do feel though that with Spielberg, it happens quite a bit where he does some things that weren't quite, he wasn't quite aware. But I think that just speaks to, um, in a lot of ways, who Spielberg was at that time. Roy didn't. Obviously, he has said that when he made that, he wasn't a father, and if he were to make it again, he wouldn't just have them. It probably wouldn't be him that just gets whisked away on the mothership. But what happens with Roy in this movie? He there's this need that he can't express any other way than what he's doing. Similarly to how Spielberg, his entire career, has been going through these issues that were from his childhood. And the only way he's been able to kind of express and work through that have been his movies. It's a really interesting connection there. And what's, I think, kind of curious to see is very rare is the Hollywood motion picture when you're making a big alien movie. This is kind of like the ending that you see. It usually is pretty more so into the horror or disaster movie kind of like genre. But and Spielberg himself, I think, said it, that the film that he feels the most is kind of like a spiritual companion to Close Encounters, is a film by Denis Villeneuve that came out in the year. Oh my God, 10 years ago this year. Jesus Christ. Oh God, this is not going to be fun. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to be insufferable this year when realizing what came out 10 years ago. Arrival with Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner. Oh God. Cut the show. I can't. This is awful. But what Arrival was speaking to was like kind of a similar thing, which like the arrival of these extraterrestrials. They're not here to destroy us. They're not here to conquer us. They're here to help. They're here to help us be better and for us to help them in return. And through all these many years and decades, those two films kind of stand on their own as far as like what it's like speaking directly to. Whereas everything else, it's not really going in that territory. Well, I guess we'll see with this new one. Because I think the through line with Disclosure Day is like, okay, yes, it's about this conspiracy and these people want to get out the truth that there are UFOs and aliens. And the aliens are seemingly, based on the trailers, helping out a select number of humans to get out this information. Where that leads, we don't know. What ultimately is the message? What is trying to be communicated here is also not sure either. Also, I thought it was pretty funny how a few months ago, people were like, what if real aliens got in contact with Steven Spielberg and like, this is how they want to make their presence known to the world in a Steven Spielberg movie? That would be pretty hilarious if that was the case. But yeah, it will be, as we said earlier, fascinating to see how different or similar what has changed. Because I want to say when Spielberg made Close Encounters, probably, I think he was, so if this was 77, he probably was 30, 29 or 30, I think. Now he's 79. A lot of life lived in that time. Guess we'll see. But ultimately, I feel like based on these 4 movies, you can see where it's going to go.
Yeah.
You can understand the skill set the subject matter, the style, the direction that you see in these films really are kind of the bedrock for what is to come in the future of movies, the future decades. And yeah, I think that's where we're gonna leave it. David, any closing thoughts or comments?
I got a show and tell of sorts.
Do you really?
Yes.
I'm most curious
Mm.
to see what that is or what that looks like. What do
So
we got?
you've seen this before. I got this 35th
Yes.
anniversary ET DVD, and then what's up? Oh, you have it. Oh, okay.
You see right there? Yeah.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay.
The store that I've shown you before with all the record store and all the
Reanimated?
yeah, they had a 25th anniversary ET set. Huge.
Whoa.
And then I open it up.
25th anniversary? When was this?
Yep. It says, oh no, 20th anniversary. Sorry. I thought it was 25th.
20th. So that would have been 2000?
I guess so.
No, 2002.
Mm.
2002.
And it comes with this book, The Extraterrestrial from Concept to Classic, the illustrated story of the film and the filmmakers. Yeah, it's just whole book about how it was made, pictures of it.
Wow.
Let's see. What is this? Oh, that was just a behind the scenes picture. I haven't read it at all, but I'll see. Hopefully, I can finish it before we do the next one because the next one's will be ET.
Yeah.
Section ET's ugly feet. What the heck? And then it comes with just a single frame of the movie.
Oh man.
That right there. And then the movie itself. Well, there's this thing. Certificate of Authenticity. Ultimate gift set. I cannot believe I found this, by the way. I was so close to buying a VHS player, and I was like, oh man, I don't know about this. And I just saw this one randomly. Just it wasn't
it
on
must have
display.
just been put in because I didn't catch it at all the last times I was there.
No, seriously, it was just laying around. It wasn't on display or anything. I just happened to see it. And then the DVD itself. Right there. Oh, I think it's the movie and the soundtrack of it in DVD. Sorry.
Right. Man. You could tell this was like the golden age of DVDs because they put in so much effort into that packaging.
Yeah,
Look at that beauty.
You don't see this at all anywhere. But yeah. $15 for this. As soon as I saw the price, I mean.
Wow.
Honestly, I don't even know if I saw the price. I just went, holy shit, this looks amazing.
That's nothing.
Yeah.
It's nothing in comparison. Can you hold it up one more time so we can see? Get one more look at that.
Oh, the back.
It looks. That's an amazing condition, dude.
For real.
You're holding something that was manufactured, like what, 23 years ago?
Mm-hmm. It's insane, huh? Crazy find. But yeah,
Jesus, man.
absolutely amazing. Yeah, that's my show and tell.
Well, I appreciate you for sharing that with the rest of the class. That was a wonderful thing to see. But yeah, look, these films really do show us how much already was there to enjoy. If it had been any other person, that would have been a point to call it quits. Didn't. He hasn't. He's not going to. Spielberg has said that uh, if he had it his way, he would die on set making a movie at the age of 100.
So I believe it.
Yeah, yeah, and he's still very much. It's hard to believe he's going to be 80 this year, I think, because he's very vibrant.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like he doesn't. I based on his appearance, to me, he feels like he would be just barely entering his 70s.
Yeah.
He's gonna be 80 years old. It makes me sad, man, because like, he may be around for 20 years. I mean, his dad lived to 102, 104, I think.
Goddamn.
So yeah, I mean, he had really good genes. So his mom, I think, to 97, 98. Like, so they both lived long lives. So I'm hoping he will too. Because we need more movies. You know, to be selfish about it, but yeah. The next episode, I don't know when we're going to record it, but I want to say that for sure we're going to talk about E.T., Raiders of the Lost Ark, Temple of Doom, maybe, and well, the 80s are so big, we might have to split it up. I think like for next time we can just do Raiders of the Lost Ark, E.T., and Poltergeist. Poltergeist officially he did not direct. That was Toby Hooper. We know there's a lot of history to get into that. And then at that point we should mention the fact that he started his own studio and how that was hitting it big and everything. And then we can save the I mean, probably we can include Temple of Doom in that as well. In that recap. But there are a number of interviews that I want to share with you from that era. Some of which we might play here. If not, I'll find them and I'll share them with you so you can watch, because I think what helps is not just watching the films, but also getting acquainted with the period and how his work was being received at the time versus how it's kind of like what we do with the Shield reaction commentary series, which is like we watch the episodes, we read reviews from that time, and then we also have someone else who in 2026 is reacting to the episodes again 10 plus years later. So for me and for any of the shows that we've done, context and history are essential to understanding and unlocking the best parts of any piece of art and media that you're going to consume. There is no substitute for that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you, David, for being able to do this. I gotta mentally prepare myself because this is the first of 3 nights that we're gonna be doing recordings. It's already 11:14 p.m. on our end of things, and
we're doing
it's gonna be a heck of a week
tomorrow, so it'll be fine.
But that will be easier.
Yeah,
I'm hoping. You know, we'll see how that goes. Thank you all for tuning in to this episode. Stay under our spotlight for more content and more. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.